Imagine you are having a great professional progression into one of the safest companies globally, Procter & Gamble. But one day you realize that you will be trading off that safety for a big move, a big challenging move to Amazon. We are here not only to talk about technical Amazon stuff, but to understand more about the evolution and progression of a true e-commerce grandmaster. Here with us today, it is Daniel Arenas. Daniel, welcome to the show. Well, Dani, you are an engineer by trade. So tell us, what was the first time when you were a kid that you took apart one full system just to check what was inside and to put it back?
So, yeah, maybe giving a bit of background, my dad is a bit of one of these handyman profiles that fixes everything and builds everything himself. So I've seen over time always him doing stuff. So I lost a bit fear of opening stuff when I was a kid, let's say. So I think that one of the first things I remember is actually, I got the PlayStation 1, back in the day.
Okay.
I don't know, I was
Like
probably,
kid,
I don't know, 9
yes.
or what, I don't remember my age, but, and I remember, that, the controllers basically flew and we dropped them, and especially when we were angry. And at some point they were broken. So yeah, I remember opening them up, understanding how the mechanism worked, what things were not working, rewiring the controller, fixing it, and then that led me, I think later on, I think a couple of years later, I also did it with PCs. No, I built
PCs.
I built my own PC, which obviously it's not breaking apart something, but you need to understand the different components. Do the research to know which ones to buy, how compatible they are, and then assemble the.
So you think your parents and your family already were already thinking Dan is going to be an engineer?
Well, I think I don't know. They were chemists, both of them.
Okay.
They work in nuclear energy.
Okay.
So it was more the science part rather than the arts part piece. So
okay.
I don't know, maybe.
Cool. Okay, and despite your engineer by trade background, you study actually computer engineering, is that right?
Yes.
But then your first job position, it was on marketing on Procter & Gamble, am I right?
Yes, kind of. So
which is a more artistic kind of role, no? So
yeah,
how did you fit there?
So let me tell you a bit the story, because otherwise you won't understand it. So I was actually doing some computer science projects, and I was happy. I liked programming a lot, so it was not that I was running away from coding or anything like it. But I got this opportunity to participate in one of these events that P&G did. That it was called the Business Challenge. So basically, they took a couple of people for a couple of days. I think it was 3 or 4 days into their offices. They created groups, and they basically gave you a business problem to solve, and you spend those 3 days working with your colleagues and basically building a case that you then presented to the leadership team in P&G. So I took part of that business challenge. I remember I was the only technical person. Even if P&G didn't really distinguish between profiles, they were hiring all sorts of people. But the guys there, because P&G is well known for marketing, were basically, I don't know, business management graduates, people that had studied marketing, and I was,
so you were the
coder. I was the outlier. But yeah, I did it. I enjoyed it. It was an experience, fine. But a couple of, I don't remember, days or weeks later, they called me and they told me that the people running the challenge liked my profile. They were, recommending me for interviews to get hired. So I did those. And eventually they asked me, what do you want to do? And I basically said, oh, what technical roles do you have in the company? Because I was assuming that in a corporate company, they would have, I don't know, someone doing not IT, giving you the laptop, but programming stuff and whatever. And they told me, no, the guys leading the program were actually recommending you for marketing. I was shocked, I didn't understood anything, but
you said yes.
I didn't understand anything. But then, I did a bit of research. I got to learn that, I did it already, but I learned that it was kind of the core function, that it was not just marketing, but actually leading a brand, and there was a business piece there. So yeah, I was young, so I said, why not? I was brave. I joined. I took the bet, I would say, and then I found out that I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I was an outlier because everyone else in my function typically came from a different background. Yeah. I mean, not everyone, but yeah, the first few weeks I felt a bit, I don't know if I belong here.
And what was this first position you hold in P&G?
So I was what back in the day was called assistant brand manager in.
For which brand?
In Brown like.
Brown.
Yeah, but the funny
shavers
thing,
and the.
Yes, that's what people say. But back in the day, I was assigned initially, because then I took over the full brand. But initially, I was assigned for the female categories. Okay. So I joined marketing, and to manage basically hair care appliances, so straighteners, dryers, stuff like that, and female epilation. So it was like
that's a double jump.
Massive double jump. And then yeah, over time I got the other categories, and but I learned to love it as well. It's and my second role in P&G was actually in Pantene. Yeah. So the hair care brand. So someone saw that I was very good with females.
Indeed. Okay, and if I'm not wrong, you have been 4 years in Procter & Gamble?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Is it a dream for most of the people? I mean, working in P&G is a super big company, super great school, super great professionals come from there. But you had this moment where you needed a change, right? So what and when did you realize that this dream of safety for most of the people was actually a barrier for your growth or a barrier for your development?
Yeah, so just to give a bit of context, because I think it's important. So when we're talking P&G, I think it was 2011, something like that, when I joined, more or less. It was soon after all this crisis of 2008. Like, companies were actually seeking efficiencies, cutting jobs, let's say opportunity. I mean, the company was more focused on restructuring itself, generating efficiencies, and it was not in a growth mode, let's say. So it was very static, and at some point I understood that I could stay there. I liked my job, and I liked the company, and I feel valued, and it was not a matter of not enjoying what I was doing, but I saw that progress was going to be very slow. By progress, I don't mean getting promoted only, but learning, getting a different role, stuff like that. So it was a matter of, is this company going to give me the speed that I'm looking for, yes or no? And at the same time, there was like this big wave around e-commerce happening. I was actually a big fan, of all these big tech companies, including Amazon, that was in its very early days in Spain. And yeah, I got the opportunity to apply, to interview, and to get there. And it became a bit of a no-brainer, because it was at the initial stages of what the e-commerce wave would become. And it was very clear that it would be a big wave. So I didn't have many doubts about leaving, because it was the right opportunity on the right company, let's say.
And on the right sector, let's say.
Yeah. That's what I mean in opportunity. It's because more like,
for people background, so Procter & Gamble, back in the days of 2015, it had like 175 years old, so it's kind of like
I remember the
legacy company. While Amazon was already very successful in the US, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then it was starting in Spain. So you were called for kind of like surfing a wave that was starting in the right company.
It was a well-known company, doing well in US. So you knew it was not the kind of crazy bet. Actually, I would say it was more the uncertainty of, will I fit there, or will I be good enough, rather than, is it Amazon, a great company that will remain there and will give me opportunity. So it was more like, the challenge of having to face something that looked on paper like.
You felt with your tech background, you felt like you could fit maybe a bit better into this Amazon ecosystem versus Procter & Gamble?
I always loved technology. So clearly, Amazon as a concept was closer to what I wanted to do. But still, I was moving into a business management role, not a tech
Not
role.
an engineering role.
I kept like
Still.
the same. No, exactly. So I kept the same kind of, because I liked what I was doing in P&G, and I like managing a business, coordinating teams, zoning the results, the P&L, all this. So it was kind of the same sector. It's true that but this is a bit by chance. I moved to PC categories, so computer categories. So
a slightly
that was
better fit, no?
that was a slightly better fit. But no, it was more like I mean, it fit the tech savviness that I had inside. It fit the categories that I liked managing. And it was at the right moment as well, because P&G was a bit stagnant. So yeah, it felt like a big opportunity that I had to take. So the question, actually, the funny thing here is that initially I didn't want to apply because I thought I would never be hired, and they had to push me to apply to Amazon, because I didn't think I would make it, because the type of profiles.
Why?
No, because the type of I mean, it's a bit the story of my life in this sense, because in P&G I was a computer science engineer working among people that had studied marketing, business management, all these things. Then in Amazon, it's not, I mean, my techie profile fits, but the type of people that were basically working in the company those days, there were a lot of, MBA kind of profiles from Ivy League universities. There were also a lot of people from top consultancy firms like McKinsey, BCG, stuff like that. So it felt a bit unachievable, no? Or like, and so it was also a question mark for me whether I would do a good job or not. So it was more the doubts initially, more than the opportunity, that for me was very clear, and it felt like a step forward on what I wanted to do.
I mean, Dani here is being very humble. I mean, he was a clear top performer in P&G. And I remember back in that days, it was several people from P&G already have left P&G to move to Amazon. So we already have references of how was this working on Amazon look like. Plus, these people knew you. So, I mean, it was kind of like...
No, but there were like one or two, and not more. So, yeah, it was not that clear to me, to be honest. And
so it was a great achievement. So you decided to move to the right sector at the right moment in a company that fit better to your purpose and objectives.
Yeah.
So it looks cool. So you entered into Amazon. Let's place ourselves into that moment. And what was these things that you thought, oh my God, the world has no idea how this machine works? That's amazing.
So, I mean, my biggest initial shock, I would say, was that P&G is a company that was quite data-driven, no? Like, you think about marketing, but it was data, like everything was quantified somehow. So I thought I was coming from somewhere that, was using data all the time. Now, when I joined Amazon, I discovered that it was in a completely different league, because in the end, the data granularity and the speed at which we generated and accessed data was a completely different story. So I remember that the first few days I was playing with some of these tools that you get, and you could even track the shipment that was sent to your home at the like, even splitting the cost of all the process, like what the product cost, like the conditions you had with the vendor, like the shipment, the marketing, everything, like amazing granularity, instant granularity. Like you could see that almost like a couple of hours after it happened. And then the second big shift for me was in P&G. I was using like the standard tools, no, that the people had. So there were things that were easy to use, but they were very limited. So instead of, you were getting downloading reports that were kind of predefined, and with that, then you do what you want to do in Excel and stuff like that. In Amazon, I found out that you had like literally their database. You had access to the database, and you could actually query whatever you wanted. So, the craziest thing or the most specific thing that you can think of, you could do it. Like, I want to know how many units we have sold of this product in this city in between these hours for people above 35 or whatever. Like, with the right, they allowed you to actually access the database. And that for someone with technical background is super powerful. And back in the day, it was the way Amazon employees interacted with the systems. This has evolved a lot, and it has converged a bit with, a big corporate where you have like standard tools, and even non-technical profiles can use and get the info. But back in the day, it was a big.
Would you say Amazon is in your sector? Is a data company, or is it a retail product selling company?
So for me, and I've had discussions many times around Amazon's business model. For me, Amazon starts as a retailer, okay? Now, but what I think has happened over time is that what Amazon has done is basically build the things it needed to manage its business, and then bundle those things and sell them externally. So if you think about the marketplace, so they built a store, they saw it was successful, and they said, well, okay, why don't we give that access to external third parties that are not ourselves?
Sorry, that now most of the European retailers have also opened their marketplace into their .com
pages.
So it was kind of like a pioneering from Amazon.
Yeah, it was a pioneer, and then for me, the great thing is that they keep doing this, and it's a bit invisible for most of the people. But if you think about it, they opened their FCs so that others could store their stuff there, their logistics so that you can actually ship to the customer using their network. Advertising, they created like traffic drivers and banners and stuff that initially were basically meant to drive traffic to their store, but then they basically sell them to others, not necessarily even selling in the website, like light energy companies like buying that visibility, and the cloud is the biggest example. Like, indeed, they needed the infrastructure to host the website and to deal with all the traffic, but they realized that they had like a spare capacity, and that it was not filled throughout the year, and they basically built the cloud business, which has ended up being the real profit driver. So for me, it's data is important, the marketplace piece is important, but it's more like this business model of building something and then selling it to the rest of the world.
Could it work also for all your marketing services, all your ads?
Yeah,
massive source of profit, exactly. I guess, for Amazon, right?
Yeah. No, that you build your,
and that's more data driven. Like, okay, you get the data, you can target much more accurately.
It's basically like that.
So today, Amazon is not a retail company only; it's a conglomerate of different sectors, and the origin of them were built because they actually need it for the retail business, right? And then they start developing that further for third parties. Great. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a few facts that happened around the world of e-commerce and Amazon in the year 2016. Mm-hmm. There is this trend that is happening these days. So let's compare ourselves with where were you and where was Amazon, where was e-commerce back in 2016. 2016 was the year where Amazon opened their first Amazon Go store in the US. So these cashierless stores, fully automated, etc. 2016, the Prime Day of 2016, it was the second Prime Day, but it was the highest day of sales of Amazon ever. 2016 was also the year where Walmart bought Jet.com, and this kind of like kicked off the beginning of Walmart.com to be a very big competitor in the e-commerce landscape. And also at the same time, Alibaba was landing their first super successful 11th.
Already then? Wow.
Yes, it was already then, selling historical numbers. So you remember your 2016 when you started in Amazon?
No, I do, because it was
part of
my first year.
Do you remember your first Prime Day, for example?
I do, not just because it was always a special date, especially back in the day. It was like really a party inside. But that the 2016 Prime Day, I happened to lead the retail operations for the event in Spain. So I had a prominent role there, and it was really challenging. I remember that I think it was the first event, these big events that Amazon runs now, like Black Friday or Prime Day. But I remember that, I mean, it's typically Black Friday, and the next big thing was Prime Day, no? So Black Friday, we had like 20 deals of the day. This is, this was like the iconic deal that was lasted the full day, and that was the best-selling products and the most iconic ones. Well, we moved from 20 more or less in Black Friday to more than 100, I think, in Prime Day, which was a big strategy shift, and it implied a lot of internal changes as well, because you had to negotiate with many more vendors. You had to ensure that the quality of the deals were, at the right bar and so on. So it was, and I had to do a lot of stuff there. So I remember.
And these days you don't have 100, you have thousands of deals in Prime.
Yeah, and actually deals of the day no longer exist. So it's, things evolve. But though you can see, those key moments where there was a mental model shift. This was one of them, because at the beginning, I think that probably we thought, hey, you want to have a very limited number of deals that are super curated and that are no more than 20, 30 that, you focus all your efforts on. Also because of the size of the company and the relationships you had. And that was, I think, one of these key moments where you said, okay, I think we can do it with more than 100. It's like you were no longer limiting yourself by, a magic number, but you were then, can we do it? And well, until these days, things have changed a lot, obviously, because.
And so for sellers and vendors working on Amazon in 2016 versus today, what do you believe are the main differences that brands see these days?
Day and night, I guess.
Okay.
So, first of all, you would be surprised if you saw a snapshot of how the website looked like back in the day and how it looks today. You would be surprised because you don't notice, but all these incremental changes add up, and then you see that the experience is completely different. But back in the day, I mean, in 2016, I think it was, the game was about being in Amazon or not being in Amazon. If you were listed, you had the products, you bet. I mean, many companies didn't have like a proper e-commerce team that was taking it seriously. I remember, working with a handful of brands in the PC category that were basically getting all the traffic, all the sales, because there was no competition. No, so it was more about.
They were just there.
Yeah, fixing the basics. You needed some basics, but it was very, very limited. And and we were probably much more agile back in the day because the tools were not that advanced, and you didn't have so many guardrails, and it was a faster experience, I would say, from the vendor and seller side, and a simpler one as well, because you didn't need to consider so many things. And now if you think about today, back in 2016 it was, I'm here, yes, I have a decent detail page, yes, I don't have a lot of competition. Today, if you want to be successful in Amazon, you basically need to master tons of things, pieces, touch points. You need to have a strategy. Probably these components need to make sense with each other. You need to think about competition much more. How do you drive traffic? I mean, it's a completely different game. At the same time, the volume is completely different as well in terms of traffic, and it's kind of the go-to place. No, when you're looking for something, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, let me check if it's in Amazon. And that means that, of course, the uplift that you can get is massive. So it's.
Do you remember if the Amazon Prime membership program was already set back then, or it came after?
It was, and it was.
How many households you had in Europe or in Spain?
I don't remember, and I think I could not tell because of the NDAs and so on. But
Okay.
But I remember, and maybe people don't remember, but Prime in Spain back in the day was called Premium.
Aha, okay.
It was not
I
even
didn't
called
remember.
Prime, no. So it was Premium, and at some point, I don't remember the year exactly, we changed the naming, because obviously Prime was getting like a lot of traction worldwide, no, as a concept. And I understand why maybe at the beginning they said, okay, this is premium members, no? Like it makes more sense and Spanish people will understand it better, but eventually they changed the name and now you're familiar to it.
And this, we talk a lot about other sectors outside of retail that Amazon work on.
Yeah.
But this Prime membership is also coming with another set of extra services, like for example, the Amazon Prime Prime channel with all the broadcasting. You are producing cinema, series, movies, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing, and I remember back in my days in Procter & Gamble's, whenever there was a new country in Europe opening, we considered it was a pivotal moment, the moment that Amazon decided to instaurate Prime membership and the Prime TV, etc. Because many more people jump into that, because it's not only getting the extra services of free shipping, next day delivery, and all this. It's also you are getting all these extra services that Amazon provides that many other retailers or any other retailer can offer. Right?
No, I think that was a bit the competitive advantage. No, like I think that subscriptions or memberships they existed, right? There were other retailers that had them, but I think they were not as appealing as the one that Amazon had, because the free shipping back in the day was a real pain point, and then people other retailers didn't really have it. And then it started to stack with all the digital services that Amazon could give, because it was a digital player, while others didn't have those. So no, it was definitely a great move, and I think it was a big differentiator. So now everything has converged a bit.
It's converging, and we talked before about data, and all these new extra touch points with shoppers or with users are giving you more data. So you now know which are the series they watch, which are the movies they watch.
I think
they have Alexa at home, another the Amazon devices have Alexa at home. So you know what music they like, and you know what radio station they hear, and so it's amazing the amount of data that Amazon has of any one of us, any shopper, no?
Yeah, I think that the biggest difference versus others right now is Amazon advertising is a big player in the advertising, let's say, landscape. And it's I would guess, one of the few, if not the few, players there that can actually connect you directly to the sales
channel, to the conversion part.
I think that remains a big advantage, especially because advertising has gotten bigger and bigger in Amazon. So even if things have converged, and you can see that even the speed on the shipments and the cost and everything, and many other retailers have caught up, there are other things that remain a bit of an
definitely
advantage.
Competitive advantages of Amazon versus other retailers, and these have been piling up. So we are piling up or compounding all this.
Yes, but I also think that some others are catching up.
Of course.
Some things. Yeah.
Which are the ones that are catching up, Dani?
Well, I think that there are things that are no longer like a game changer, because some others can actually offer them as well. Like, shipping. These days, many companies are able to have a similar experience in shipping, at least in speed. I think that, at least my experience is that Amazon is super reliable and you can really trust it, and it's really tracked and so on. And sometimes others might promise that you're gonna get the shipping, and theoretically you can get it, but then depending on which company they use, they are not fully reliable and stuff like that. But anyway, shipping is no longer such a big competitive advantage as it used to be, also because now pretty much everyone, above certain thresholds in terms of price, they are giving you for free. So that has converged. But then other things like the data, the experience, I think that it's very seamless, and people have the app and the Prime membership, and so there are many things that remain. There are also other things where I think that competitors, because it's a completely different world that it's evolving, are doing better as well, no? Like you have I think the agility that you see on the newcomers, especially from China, whether they are retailers like, I don't know, Shein, Temu, AliExpress, or platforms like TikTok, the speed at which they can execute, and the way they can capture trends and so on, is today is not matched by Amazon, because Amazon has become like a much more established player, and making changes and adjusting to the new times is harder, just because you need to make sure that you make that transition in a controlled way. So, and they will fix it eventually, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that right now there are other competitors with advantages as well, and you also need to understand what game you're playing or how to maximize your opportunities in the different platforms. No, it's not just a single. I think it's no longer a single, e-commerce player, at least in most of the countries.
I feel the same. So you think because Amazon evolution has been so massive now, it is a huge player, it has lost a little bit the flexibility and agility that it used to have like 15 years ago? So is it still day one?
I mean, it's day one. I think there's a big effort to remain in day one, but and this is my experience, and it's not necessarily on Amazon, what I've seen, not just working within companies, but talking to many companies, because of my roles, I've been exposed to many companies. I think that in the end, when companies get bigger and they have, bigger teams, more revenue, more shareholders, whatever, they also get bigger responsibilities, right? And it's, I think, inevitable that there are some things that are going to be slower, just because there's going to be some bureaucracy that you will need to go through. Not intentional, probably, but just because anything that you change that has an impact can be really good or really bad, but it has a big impact, no? So you need to be more careful, and that's the downside. On the other hand, back in the day, people didn't trust Amazon that much. They were not used to buy. And now I think that you've got that now. Like people, especially people that have used this for years, it's automatic, no? Like you go to Amazon, it's a two-click, whatever. It's
couple of
you
clicks,
trust.
done.
You don't overthink the what you're buying. You just, it's kind of organic, and that and the traffic that it gets and everything compensates. I mean, it's a different type of opportunity. Now you're playing in the big established player that has tons of traffic that sells a lot, but maybe it's harder to keep up with the agility of the new trends.
Some of these commerce.
It's like the corporate versus a startup, if you wish, a bit like that. So, but now it's more even fundamental when you have an e-commerce strategy, because now you need to be in Amazon, yes or yes. It's not a discussion, because that's where the big volume is now. The other players also have play a role in your strategy, I think.
Okay, so you said you have to be on Amazon, yes or yes. I fully agree. Do brands need to be on TikTok Shop, yes or yes, these days?
So if you want a one-word answer, I would say no, because if you consider the overall share and the market and the volume, probably not being in TikTok Shop doesn't mean that you cannot have a strong business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say that probably TikTok Shop today is where Amazon was, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. So it's probably, and I guess that many companies are seeing it this way, like for more cautious companies that don't want to take risks, probably it's not part of the of their e-commerce strategy or at least the priorities. But it's definitely an opportunity. So for me, it's but on the other hand, Amazon needs to be on the strategy, because otherwise you're not playing in e-commerce. Sure. But it's not kind of incremental, and it's a place where you need to fight a lot. And I guess that TikTok Shop now is more like a white space. And I'm a TikTok user, meaning I see TikTok myself. I don't post. But anyway, people are surprised when I say, you have TikTok.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan.
And I think it works great, and it's actually risky because it's very good with the algorithm, and in the end, it shows you a lot of stuff that you're interested on, and you can trick the algorithm as well to basically train it to see things that you really would like. I mean, if you love sports, AI, Formula One, whatever, your TikTok is going to be that. So I think it's great. And I see already a lot of advertising, a lot of things being sold there. And many of these things, more than once, I've been tempted to buy, or I've tried it as well. Yeah? I've bought in TikTok Shop. Yeah, I think that it will organically grow because there's you're already there, right? Of course, it's not Amazon in the sense that you're not in the funnel, you're not in the closing moment, so you're not
more in the awareness phase.
It's a bit more like generating awareness, and probably you need a couple of hits of impressions of the same stuff to eventually buy. But yeah, the number of impressions that you get in TikTok are, orders of magnitude higher than what you would have in a...
It's still difficult for people on TikTok to trust the platform that much to buy there still, no? So we do see a lot of brands that do very well on TikTok, and it concatenates massively on Amazon because people see that in TikTok and then they end up in Amazon because they fully trust on Amazon. They check for the product on Amazon, they buy it there, right?
Exactly.
So still the trust of TikTok Shop needs to be built. However, people is there and spending much more time than in Amazon, definitely. No? So the opportunity is there. It's like Amazon 12 years ago for Europe. So, I mean, brands that jump there now, and we are trying to do so with some of our brands, they will have the advantage of the early adopter. They will have the extra cost of the learning and failing, but we definitely bet for that. Yeah, we consider TikTok Shop is going to be the main Amazon competitor in the Western side of the world.
That I don't know because I think that it's a bit of a different... I see it very complementary in the sense that it's an awareness tool mainly, not TikTok today. So I don't know. I see a lot of Chinese players that are doing well, even, local players in different countries. What I've seen is that the e-commerce landscape is very different from country to country. I mean, you're in your country and you think it's Amazon, maybe the established retailer, but that established retailer that you know in your country is different in another country. So it's a bit more complex than that. And I don't, I don't know who's going to be the winner. I think that TikTok will play a role, but I don't know if it will be TikTok or Amazon. I don't see people I think that in the end it doesn't have like a detailed page of the... It's more discoverability, like it's not...
I believe they will evolve to... product detail page you already have, and some people is already searching for products in TikTok. So you will be amazed on some of the latest numbers. However, I do think TikTok Shop is going to be the main Amazon competitors at a far distance. So Amazon is still going to be the big winner. Amazon within the e-commerce channels ecosystem, it is the biggest. It is the closure channel. It's the channel that everyone in Europe and in the States and in many other areas trust. People trust it. TikTok still needs to gain that. Yeah. However, what we are checking these days is that the combination of TikTok Shop plus Amazon, if you are able to play this multi-channel strategy, you have a massive competitive advantage.
No, I completely agree. And I think one thing we're missing and we're not discussing is maybe we're thinking about e-commerce, but then there's the offline as well, right?
True.
And for me, there's like a transfer, organic transfer that has been happening. But yeah, maybe if you go back a couple of years ago, you saw Amazon like a challenger, like the cool platform that young people were using, whatever. Maybe today that's more like the TikTok or the Temus of this world. But then you also need to consider that then Amazon is becoming the established player that it's also getting, let's say, customers from established offline players. So I think the landscape is just rearranging, and there's
Fully agree. In fact, we should not forget that the current share of e-commerce within the European ecosystem on most consumable brands, it's not even 15% yet. So definitely e-commerce is going to grow to China's numbers, South Korea's number that is 50% and more. So if we are growing from 15 to 50%, 50, definitely there is a space for a much bigger Amazon and for many more players. Also within this channel,
and then
right?
It's depending on how you're focusing or what's your approach on buying, no? Because for me, it's like if I know what I'm looking for and I'm kind of have an idea and so on, I can go to Amazon, do the research, buy. I'm quite confident that I'm gonna find things there. TikTok is a bit like going shopping, no, without having a clear intent
Discovery
of the
shopping.
discovery shopping. It's like when you go to
I try stuff, I check stuff,
I go to
I
stores,
share.
I look at things, so it's a bit of a different concept, and then I mean, people change as well. So the dynamics, the trends, and we tend to think with historical examples in mind, but the reality is that things change very quickly. So I don't think that the Gen Z is gonna buy, because now they buy and everything, but in the end there's like this transfer when they start working, when they have like the purchasing power and everything.
So one of the things I have been amazing lately is about reading analytics on TikTok on the age of shoppers and users of TikTok Shop and TikTok in general. So I would be amazed.
Why?
Because the age is much higher than what I was expecting.
But it makes sense, because these are the guys that have the credit cards, that have the purchasing power. So
indeed, but this is not that it's not anymore that much of the super younger generations only seeing dances there, and
no.
It's becoming. I mean, you and me were more or less same age, around the 40s. I spend maybe half an hour or 1 hour per day in TikTok because they offer me great stuff, as you said. Like they offer me things that I'm interested on. It's an amazing algorithm, right? And there are more and more heavily adult or Gen X and other generations.
Yeah.
Going there, millennials.
And you don't have any barriers buying online. And for you, TikTok or Temu or Shane, like if it's a well-established company, you don't have that fear of using them because your credit card data is going to be leaked, or like these, that these are big companies and you've lost that fear. And I think that's a bit the difference, no? Like it's much easier now when you're used to buying online wherever, because you did it in Amazon back in the day. I mean, to move to somewhere else than it was back in the day that you were forcing to move people from an offline purchasing experience to an online.
Difficult, definitely.
So as long as it's a well-known company that you've heard in the, I don't know, in the web, in the news, whatever, I tend to think that, millennials, if you wish, are very open to buy in these platforms because there's no longer a barrier about thinking that you're going to be scammed, which I think is why you can see that probably the conversion in TikTok, the profile of the purchaser is higher. Still, obviously, the average age is going to be much lower on the content, but
let's see. But very interesting times ahead with all these e-commerce channel definitely growing, all these new players coming in different phases of the funnel. So we'll keep following that and testing in e-commerce GrandMasters. So trying to wrap up this 2016 versus 2026 and how was time back then and how is time today. So if you will have the chance to send a 60 seconds audio note to the Daniel Arenas of 2016, how would you describe to him what success looks like for a brand in Amazon and e-commerce these days?
You mean what would they need to do, or what is?
No, how does success look like today? What do brands do today to succeed versus what was that back in the time?
Okay, so what do they need to do to succeed? So no, I think I mentioned before, like I think the first thing is back in the day it was about being present, and that was enough because it was a competitive advantage. Of course, the better the content and the better your overall strategy and traffic strategy and everything else, the better. But it was not a requirement, no? Like you could succeed and you could get sales and you could do a good job just with the basics. Because not everyone was doing the basics. There were a lot of people that were not listed on Amazon. There were a lot of people that didn't curate their catalog. They were not ensuring that the stock was there and so on.
And these days? What do you need these days?
And these days, it's much different, right? Because all those are, it's like the bare minimum, like having the product in stock and ensuring that, your logistics are kind of matching, or you work with Amazon with their FBA program, whatever, like that's, it's a basic. Also because if you're not in stock, then you're going to eventually lose, your positioning in the page because someone else is going to sell, the flywheel is going to kick in, and they're going to get a better ranking in the search, and that kills your product if you lose it. But then obviously the catalog, it's no longer a differentiator. You need to have like great content, all these
promotional
A+
strategy,
premium, a promotional strategy,
PPC.
a clear pricing strategy, not just the promotions, but who are you competing with? How are you driving traffic? I mean, you need to master a lot of variables to do a good job and maximize the output. Sometimes, depending on your product and your category, not doing it incredibly well is not mandatory because you're still gonna be able to sell. In other categories, it's so competitive that it basically means that you are gonna be completely killed and you're gonna be irrelevant. And even brands that, I've seen it with brands that if you go out there in the offline world, they are strong. But still, if they don't execute well their strategy in Amazon, if they have competitors that are doing it well, they have a much lower share or are irrelevant. So
yeah, your market share offline, it is not a guarantee that you will be having the same market share in Amazon. Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely
it helps. I mean, it helps a bit to close, obviously, because people have
more
like
branded search terms, the conversion rates, the click-through rates are bigger.
And in the end, you have like.
But it's not a guarantee. So you need to know how to play on Amazon. It's not a given that you
there
will
are
go to Amazon.
Very few brands, and you can imagine the names that are driving traffic by themselves. Like people go and look for them specifically. In the vast majority of the cases, you are in the end competing with a set of brands that are top consideration for customers, and if they're doing a better job than you're doing, it's very likely that they will get the majority of the sales.
So I remember many of the categories of Procter & Gamble, we saw this huge inflow of newcomers, new competitor brands that were born online, native online startups, that they were born and live in the ecosystem of online. They know how to play that much better because they have specialized resources, and how they get to 40s, 50% of the total share of certain categories. For example, beauty, and in many other categories that you probably know better than me, So it is amazing how different it is, the management of a customer like Amazon versus the management of a customer like Rossmann, Tesco, Carrefour.
Yeah, because in the end, I think the biggest difference is that, well, you know it better than I do, is the shelf space, right? Like
infinite, no?
But it's more than Amazon, it's on the others. Like if you are able to get a space in a shelf that's limited, then that's the key, distribution, and not everyone gets the distribution. That's the point. Online, you have an infinite shelf, and then you need to work to actually get the attention, to become visible, and that is not a given. And then I also think that in many products and many categories, the product differentiation is, it's hard to have a differentiation that really stands out and that it really justifies that,
super premium price.
Exactly. So I think many years ago in some categories, clearly, but in all the categories, from technology, but also on fast-moving consumer goods, sometimes there were brands that really had a better product and you could defend that. But these days, with how cheap it is to produce stuff, how much technology has advanced, like you get competitors that are not necessarily. I've seen so many Chinese brands grow and become even leaders of their categories.
And just don't forget how easy does Amazon put things now for newcomers and sellers, right? Yeah. Because they offer you the global logistics with freight forwarding. They offer to you all the fulfillment logistics, warehousing. They offer to you all the marketing services that you mostly need. Yeah. So they facilitate things that much that the barriers of entrance are super low. And that's something that I've seen with many big vendors, many big brands, management, they do not understand. So how come that these newcomers can be coming, earning the attention, having the top spots on the search results, And
they know the tools better. I mean,
yes,
first,
they know the tools better.
I think this is not Amazon. This is a global trend. No, I think that every e-commerce retailer, although it's true that Chinese players, I mean, they take longer to come to the Western world, let's say. So you need more time to see the trend, but you see it, like if you see the AliExpress of the world and so on, they also want to become global, and they're trying to, you know, ease that globalization for the brands. It's not just Amazon. So eventually, I think that all the big players will want to have like a global footprint, and basically you list somewhere and you appear everywhere somehow. So then the differentiation is how much you're taking advantage of the tools that they are putting at your disposal, and how are you tricking the system, let's say, and do you know
how
the
well
tricks,
do you move the pieces, and
yes,
how do you play the game?
And then, but this is happening everywhere, right? It's even offline. You see that now products, I mean, established brands can be challenged much more than in the past.
Would you say that Amazon, as one of the main catalyzers, have democratized the commerce for a lot of newcomers to come in? And
I think that a lot of people probably, I mean, this is my opinion. I'm not saying this is the case, but I think that probably Amazon was the place where many unknown brands started
and
succeeded, and I think that's something that people have probably seen, and it has kind of removed a barrier that people might have, no? Because back in the day, I don't know, there are brands like Anker, a massive 3P seller technology, and people recognize it as a technology brand. They are not saying it's a Chinese or a, you know, a seller in Amazon. Now it's a brand that even is recognized for its quality, and it was built in Amazon, right? And I think that this has happened with many other brands, and now people have less fear to use new brands. Actually, I think that people even think they are clever or, you know, smart if they find like the new. I mean, you know, there's a psychological aspect to it of trying to find the new thing that people don't know, but that it's better, it's cheaper, it's cooler. So, and there isn't, you know, a performance difference anymore in many categories. Of course, there are others where there are differences, but some others it's about the trend, how cool this is, and I mean, honestly, like I also think that Chinese, not brands, but Chinese manufacturers are so agile that when they spot a trend, they are able to, you know, bring things to Europe relatively quickly, super fast. And that implies that, you know, if they list them in an e-commerce, they're going to be competing, because then you go to TikTok and you see the trend, and, you know, it's kind of feeding the same type of, you know, experience.
So we are talking now a lot about these Chinese sellers, but Amazon as a marketplace, it has, I believe, latest figures like 2.5 to 3 million sellers. So there are plenty of companies globally that are selling on Amazon, and I wonder, how do sellers still today see Amazon profitable platform to sell on, considering the fees of Amazon? We consider the Amazon fee of 15% plus PPCs plus fulfillment cost, etc. It can sum up to 30-50%. And still they come because they see the interest on the platform. So why do you think they still see interest on a platform that is becoming probably more and more competitive and more expensive, no, on costs?
Well, I mean, I understand where the question is coming from, but in the end, I think when you look at this, you need to basically understand what's the value you're getting in exchange, no? Like these numbers that you've mentioned, which depend a lot by category and so on, I mean, have things behind. So the thing is, Amazon has a lot of traffic, so it's a place where you're basically making sure that you're gonna get like those impressions, and people are gonna find your product, and you know, they can buy it. And then a lot of these things are actually services that if you want to do them outside of Amazon, they have a cost. And Amazon, what's basically doing, it's pricing them in the way they think it's convenient or fair for them. And then they are bundling everything in a very convenient way. So the point is, you can basically sell online across many countries with a very limited burden, because you can basically do everything in Amazon. They take care of the logistics, you can do the advertising there, you can, you can basically do everything, right? Like the invoicing, like it's very easy, and that obviously, it has a cost. Then it's up to everyone to understand if that pays off or not. But obviously, it's they are giving you a lot as well. Like
when I need to convince still rarely you need to convince someone to start selling or to push selling on Amazon. I use the analogy of, okay, if you want to set up a store, would you go to kind of like a super dark neighborhood, and would you go to a secondary street and put your store there? Or would you prefer to go to the big mall, big modern mall, where with a lot of leisure services, restoration, a lot of activities, a lot of shops, would you like to place your store there? Okay, the rent is going to be a little bit more expensive, right? But you get all the benefits of a lot of traffic, qualitative traffic, a lot of other businesses that could be related around you. So this is a little bit like Amazon. Wouldn't you like to be on the top mall or the highest traffic mall in your country or in your city?
No,
you probably would like to be there, right?
It's a good example. Taking your example, sometimes maybe you don't want to sell that much. Well, it's not that you want to sell, but in the end, it's also a bit of an image thing, no? Like you want to be there because you need to be there, because if you're not there, you're nobody. So there's part of that, like, think about where the customer is going to look for your product. You need to be there because people are going to look there. Now, then you have the option, I guess, of how much fuel you want to put in this store versus others, or in your overall strategy. And you can basically play, if it's really expensive for you, which depends, I guess, on the cost structure that you have and the category. You can always try to, deviate sales to some other channels, but the point is, you need to be in Amazon, because that's
these days definitely.
It's where people are going to look.
There is no other option. So we have been talking about the costs of selling on Amazon, and the goods and the bads of it, still being very interesting for most of the brands globally. What, in your experience working with many vendors and having seen hundreds or thousands of P&Ls, what do you believe is this silent or hidden cost that most of the people will not expect or would not see that first sight?
So I think that there are some things that are very visible, right? Like whether you're a seller or a vendor, I think that it's pretty obvious that you know what the product costs or how much you're charging for it, what are the terms that you have or the fees that you're paying, and that's very, you do a quick math, no? Like this is a bit the cost of doing business, the basic one. Now, I think that the thing gets tricky when you need to basically take care of other stuff that it's not that obvious at the very beginning. That is, for me, it's more like, how do you ensure that you are competitive? And in that piece, I think the two basic pillars are marketing and pricing. Because in the end, they're the two big chunks. No, you can spend money on advertising of any type and to drive traffic, or you can be competitive in pricing, so your product is going to be attractive in the category by definition, no? So that piece, it's not in the product itself, and you might find throughout the process that you need to invest to basically sell, which is sometimes not in the business case that you have initially. And I think the second piece is more on the invisible costs or impacts of the operations. And by operations, I mean like everything else. No, how do you, for instance, manage the customer returns?
Oh, big pain.
That is because, imagine, depending on what's your margin in every product, but if you have a 20% margin, means that if they return one product and you cannot sell it back and it ends up in liquidation, whatever, maybe to compensate that return, you need to sell 3, 4, 5 units, no? So it's a big impact. And then you also have like the pure logistics and making sure that you're able to manage, the expectations of Amazon. It depends again on whether you're a vendor or a seller, because if you are a seller, you need to be more worried about, especially if you're in the EFBA business, fulfilled by Amazon, how much time your product is on the FC, how much the space is costing you, things like that. On the other hand, if you're a vendor, you probably do more regular shipments or whatever, and you need to comply with also for a seller, no? But it's like, how are you compliant with the rules of the packaging? Because otherwise you get chargebacks and stuff, and all those things are definitely not in the initial business case in your Excel file at the beginning, but they can backfire and become really complicated to manage, and they can kill your business. So I think those are like the two things that are a bit invisible for, especially for someone new. For someone that has experience, they know, but for new people, you know
how to manage, but still you struggle because you need to find the right balance, no? Because these returns, for example, returns, it's part of the why people trust Amazon that much, right? You can return it almost.
You need to have you need to consider it. I mean, of course, it can pay off, like it makes sense, but you need to consider it. And then on the other side, on the creating attractiveness for your product, when you're offline, sometimes these things are kind of taken for granted because you have the shelf space or because you know the brand, whatever. But online, it's much more complicated because people are fighting and paying for the positioning and so on. So it's and everything's very dynamic, no? Like it's real time. It's in offline you can plan, and even the retailer is gonna make sure that there's no clash, no, between similar brands that are promoting the same, unless it's themed week. But online, as anyone can actually change pricing on the fly, you need to be completely on top to make sure that you sell, and that has a cost, of course.
So focus, agility.
No, you need to be completely
this ecosystem is extremely fast, isn't it?
Yeah,
extremely fast.
And depending on the category, because then you have, like in fast-moving consumer good category, sometimes you have things that cannot last for very long, right? Because they are perishables or whatever. In technology, you have like the obsolescence. It's coming, so it's not like you can manage your inventory. And these things, again, even if you think you're gonna sell them, you need to sell them in a timely manner, right? So it's sometimes this has an incremental cost that you were not counting. So it's and it's a very common mistake, I would say.
Yeah, indeed. Pay close attention to returns and operational efficiencies. Okay, cool. We talk a little bit of the importance of a good pricing strategy, but me in my skin and many brands that we have worked with, we know how complicated it is to understand how the pricing algorithm of Amazon works, no? And it's not that difficult. The thing is that we don't want to face this reality, no? But the reality is that Amazon price matching algorithm, at least this is what I believe. You don't need to confirm, Dani,
No.
It price matches the lowest price for this specific product, whatever is out there in the market, no? This particularly for vendors, but in the case of sellers, you also need to fight for the buy box. I mean, you also have kind of like some pricing wars related with the pricing algorithm. But this pricing matching is generating a lot of trouble to many brands, right? Probably you have lived that. You have had many conversations.
I don't know what you're talking about. No, it's it's true. First, I think that what you need to consider is, which I think is like the official message, and I think it's true, it's Amazon wants to remain competitive, no? So
makes sense.
That means that they will do their best to be competitive. Now, at the same time, the greatest thing about Amazon, and this is a conversation that I've had over the last decade, I don't know, thousands of times with different vendors, is that Amazon is probably the most predictable retailer because you can get to learn how it works. Unlike other retailers where there are, people behind making decisions every day. In Amazon there are as well, but in the end those decisions end up being a system configuration of some type. And then the goal a bit is to run the business in an automated way. So if you know how it works, which is also not super difficult for the main, key things, it's not, then you can really predict what's going to happen. And then it's more on you and your decisions and how you manage your business, what are your pricing strategies, what are your distribution strategies,
commercial strategies, etc.
Like, and then it's, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's your fault because it's obviously not your fault, but it's like you could have preempted what was gonna happen, right? So it's on your hands to basically define a strategy that you feel comfortable with and knowing what the outcomes are likely gonna be. Sometimes there are things that don't go exactly as you expect, but I think that generally speaking, you can more or less know 95% of the times how Amazon is going to behave.
And much more than with other retailers, right? Because as you said,
it's
human decisions in other retailers are making this kind of like a little bit random, what it could happen with the price or whatever. But Amazon is going to price match the lowest. Punto. That's it. It's easy to understand. So your portfolio strategies, your distribution strategies, your commercial strategies can perfectly anticipate that. Of course, a brand cannot control the price in the market because every retailer can do whatever they want. But you can understand what is going to happen before it happens. So every time a brand
at least you can model scenarios, no? Like maybe
you can model scenarios. Maybe
you don't know what is going to happen, but you know that if this happens, there's a couple of implications that will likely happen. And that is not going to be a surprise. And you can prepare ahead of those scenarios, and you can basically, plan what you're going to do if that happens, or try to avoid that certain scenarios actually happen, no? Because that's
one of the things. Just to give a few examples of how you can manage this kind of issues, is like Amazon shoppers pretty much. In many categories, behave slightly different than the shopper that is purchasing in hypermarkets, supermarkets. You can always find angles to try to identify what is the size that fits better with Amazon shopper behavior, or this new flavor of your product, or these new features or extra accessories or whatever that can work better for a shopper in Amazon that normally it spends more per trip, for example. It goes less frequency than in other retailers. So you can always find these angles to see, okay, I'm going to build a specific commercial strategy for Amazon, and this specific commercial strategy is going to fit much better for the shopper on Amazon. So that can be done, but that needs to be thought through on the design phase, right? So every time when a brand has come to us and asked about this, we say, okay, whatever is you have now in the market, don't try to fix it now. It's not in your control. Forget about that. And the legislation forbids you, so forget about that. However, next time, get the learnings, and from the design phase, anticipate and design this kind of like a scenario mapping.
This is actually very true. I think that it's much easier to have the right strategy or the right foundations when you are new and when you're launching something new than when everything's already there, because then you've lost control. Like I've seen it many times, like companies of all types trying to fix a situation that they generated themselves. But that is very complicated because once that's in place, it has had, a lot of, implications, and there are so many stakeholders there. To begin with, you don't know where your product is distributed anymore if you've lost a bit control of the channel, meaning you've done it through a distributor or whatever, and then suddenly anyone can access your product and they can price it where how they like. So it's much better to think about these things in advance.
Yeah, indeed.
Sometimes I've seen it also. The solution is actually to discontinue a product.
Yeah.
And launch the new version, or then sometimes it's even a very small update, or even a code change, or a packaging change or something. And sometimes the companies use this just to reset a bit the.
One of the critical things that we teach in our courses is the product life cycle, no? And you need to understand the product life cycle, and when a product gets born, what you need to do, when it's mature, what you need to do. before it gets born, it gets born. What do you need to plan? What do you need to decide? So we will be moving now to keywords. I remember back in the days when I was training people to work in the Amazon teams in Procter and Gamble. I had this slide. It was the time of Game of Thrones. I remember.
Yeah.
So I put this slide with a big throne, and I say, Amazon is a game of keywords. And my presentations start like that, no? And it was actually a game of keywords. I mean, people search on the search bar, type a keyword, a search term, and then the relevancy and the sales velocity and certain other factors trigger the algorithm to push some products upwards or not, no? However, these days it looks like AI is kicking in, no? So it looks like 2026 is going to be probably the year of stabilization of Rufus and Amazon AI. How do you see this transition from keywords to AI models?
Yeah.
How do you see Amazon flowing there, and what would you recommend to brands to get ready for?
I mean, this is hard to say because I think it's changing every single day. Not in Amazon, by the way. I think this is a global trend. You can see it everywhere. Google, to begin with, like the first thing you're getting right now is an AI summary. So, but yeah, the point for me is that things are changing. I also think that things have always changed a lot. Maybe it was a bit invisible for people because they still were thinking about the basic workaround to get well positioned in the search ranking. So I don't think it's massively different from what has happened in the last 10 years. It's just that it's very visible because, as you've said, probably it's no longer a keywords game. I think that for me the two, without this is my opinion, but the two trends that I see, one is hyper personalization. I think that not just Amazon, I think that more and more you want to have like a personalized experience, and you will get that. And that means that it's going to be trickier for anyone that wants to position their product or put it in front of you to know how to do that, because what they will see is different from what you will see. Hence, you really need to understand how, or to try to guess how things are working in the background to be able to be in front of that person. So that makes things more complicated. And then the other one is that, and I think this is positive for the overall, experience. I think, and in the past it was a keywords game, as you say, where you could actually trick the system, no? With the right keywords, even if your product had nothing to do with what you wanted to sell, you could actually rank very high. But now with AI, it's not like this because it's kind of predicting stuff, but AI helps you understand a bit better what's the actual intent of the purchaser, right? Of the buyer. So I guess that the evolution is not such a big change. It's instead of thinking about the keywords that they're going to look for, it's more what is the intent, or how are the buyers going to translate that intent into questions, into phrases, or verbalize that to interact with AI. And then you will need to adjust to that. And then you will find issues because obviously AI is a very new technology, and the way it works is just
Evolving.
It's not just evolving, but it's very tricky, no? Like there's this concept in AI that's called overfitting. That is, when a model is trained, like the ChatGPTs of this world or so on, they get like tons of information. Some of that information is repeated a lot of times. Maybe some local saying, or some special problems or puzzles that are very typical. So what happens with this overfitting is that if the AI ends up kind of learning by heart the answer. So if you have the same puzzle and you just change a slight thing, like a small number, there's the risk that the AI will actually give you the same answer of the typical puzzle just because it has learned it by heart. So all these things are going to impact also the search algorithms, and there will be people that will try to, for instance, if you know exactly what's the exact phrase that people use to ask for something, probably you can basically create a lot of content and your detail page, and not just in Amazon, probably this is going to be trained also with external information, and try to connect exactly those kind of questions or that those phrases with your product and win in that race. But this is so uncertain right now that it's
okay. So basically, we would be needing to anticipate which are the answers to the main questions about our products and feed them up into our product detail page. Is this kind of like the most
I think
reasonable
where we
way?
will evolve is both inside Amazon and outside Amazon, because I'm pretty sure that the technology that will be used in a retailer to assess what's the intent or the right product is not gonna be just coming from within the retailer, because actually if you ask a question like I was working in PC, so a question that I was obsessed with is I want in this case Rufus to basically be able to answer the question as I want to play Fortnite at 60 FPS in a 4K monitor, blah blah blah. This information you're not gonna find in Amazon. But if the AI is smart enough or has it has been trained with all external data, it might point you towards the right product still, right? But that's not within the detail page. So probably there's a lot of things you need to do outside
very interesting.
to actually help the internal algorithm to pick your product, because it's not about the catalog, it's about all the information that a big model can get from scraping all the internet and being trained with all these things. So I think it's going to be a much more inside and outside kind of job, rather than just focusing on what's happening inside Amazon.
Okay, extremely interesting. Thank you. Okay, we talk about AI.
Yeah.
And you recently left Amazon, that's right?
Yes.
To move to an entrepreneurial project related with AI. So would you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, so basically, after 10.5 years in Amazon, well, there was a combination of factors, like I felt coming back to the P&G experience that at some point when companies become mature and a bit stagnant and so on, like opportunities are not at the same level that they used to be, and you project a bit the future and what's going to happen in terms of career progression, learning, salaries, whatever, and you need to think if that fits what you want to do. And to be honest, I was very, very happy in Amazon, and I love the company and I enjoyed my job a lot. But then there are other things, like for me, I'm a computer science engineer. Technology has always been,
Are you finally fitting with
no,
what you meant to be?
I was always I always think about technology. I love technology. I really want to be kind of close to the latest technology, and AI was definitely changing the world, and it's gonna change even more. And for me, it was a bit like a tsunami coming, not even a wave. It's a tsunami that's gonna change a lot of things. And to be very honest, I had a bit of fear of missing out, and I was also a bit anxious about not actually getting up to speed with what was happening on AI, on the latest technology, and being able to access all the different tools and so on. So, well, things that happen in life, there were people that I knew from before, actually some of them from Amazon. We started looking into some opportunities. We validated the ideas. We started, checking if we were able to, put together the team to basically solve a need, and we decided to basically build a company. And when you already do that, it was I did it a bit as a side hustle initially when I was in Amazon, but at some point when it gets really serious, you need to focus. And for me, it was the right moment, and coming back to surfing the wave. But it's also kind of continuous learning, keeping yourself updated. So yeah, I'm in a good position because also, my wife, by the way, works in Amazon as well. So we also wanted to diversify a bit. And yeah, we took the step. It's been pretty recent, like full time. But yeah, I feel it's been the right choice because I'm learning a lot. And I think that everything that I wanted to do, I'm doing. So it's uncertain. To be honest, it's tricky to manage. It's still hard to.
The company is called Optiac, right?
Yes.
And what is this exactly doing around AI, please?
So basically, what I'm going to simplify a bit because obviously we could get quite technical. So basically, what we found out was that companies really want to access all AI. No, like there are very few companies that are willing to say, "Hey, I'm just gonna work with one AI provider," because I see how quickly things are evolving in all the other providers. When I say providers, I mean the LLM providers like I don't know, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, but also like the services around AI, because there are a lot of applications and services and security, observability, like a lot of things that you need to have a proper, strategy on AI in your company. So we saw that, companies really wanted to have like different access to all these different AIs. And when you try to do that internally in a company, it becomes complicated, because you need to basically connect a lot of dots internally. You need to basically build a framework to be able to manage that. And we saw that there were companies trying to maybe manage this in some way, but there wasn't a clear winner. We saw a clear need, and we decided that we had the talent with the extended team that we've put together to basically tackle this problem. So what we're trying to build is an enterprise system that basically enables you to have all the AIs in a simple way, so that you don't need to go crazy and maintain a crazy system. And then there are, of course, some other things that we want to do with the system over time, but initially it's basically to be able to integrate AI properly in your company in a cool, secure Dani. Way, blah, blah, blah. So
we wish you best luck with it. We know you will keep succeeding. You are a GrandMaster these days.
We'll see. But
let me ask you one last question for our students.
Yep.
So what would you tell these people that is willing to enter into this e-commerce world, but has heard this interview or maybe other content, and is thinking, am I smart enough? Am I techie enough, technology driven enough? What would you tell them to encourage them to really push to get into that field?
Well, I feel, across my career, I think that I was probably a bit of an outlier where I was. So back in the day of P&G, I was a computer science engineer doing marketing. Then when I moved to Amazon, I was someone that had studied in a public university and hadn't done an MBA, didn't come from a big consultancy firm, and I was able to do it. Now we're building, this AI company, and I have a technical background, but nothing in the last 15 years that actually helps me build this. And I still see that I can do it. So I think it's about having focus, resilience, being motivated. We're not talking about rocket science here. I think these are things that people can actually learn, and quite fast, I would say, with the right professors and with the right material. So I think there should be nothing preventing people to actually take the chance and the leap, and I'm sure that people can do it, with the right guidance. So,
and you're a great example. Thank you, Dani.
Thank you.
Wish you best success.